emodels.co.uk. Make something awesome. Hey everyone, welcome. It's Foxx from Model Making Guru here. Hello and welcome to part 6. Six. I know, there might be a 7. You never know. We'll see. Welcome to part 6 of our build of the Takom 135th AML-90 light armoured vehicle, which we have Warhammered up, as you have seen in the previous episodes, to be a Warhammer Imperial Skitter light reconnaissance vehicle. Yes, now, where are we up to? Apologies for the delays. We've had building work next door for the last few weeks and it just meant I can't film. So I've been sort of sitting twiddling my thumbs. We are back. So, where are we up to? Well, we've done most of the stuff we need to do on the actual models themselves. Now, a couple of little bits left to do on the vehicle itself. The thing we're going to focus on today is the diorama. Let's do a diorama. So what have we got set up for the diorama? Well, I went to the art shop and I got myself a cheap picture frame, like £3. Cheaper picture frames are available. We have a selection of diorama things like sand and gravel and grass tufts and shrubbery that Dave, Why Is the Rum Gone Barker, you may recognise him from the eModels live chat on Mondays. He very kindly sent me all these little diorama bits and bobs, bits of kitty litter and stuff like that, bits of slate and things. We're going to use some of those. We have some of the Ammo by MIG diorama products. We have Pinewood Forest Base AMIG 8352, which is a mat of sort of tufts of grass and gravel with some twigs and bits in it. So you may have seen me use the grassy sort of cover on the diorama for the transit van. Similar thing, it's just a mat that you can cut up. So we might use some of that. And we also have a couple of their smaller little things. We have some dry ferns and some tropical ferns. These are little tiny paper cutouts, I think. They're like little cutout things, you just stick them on, so they're quite cool. We have a block of bog standard gardeners or flower arranging oasis foam. Now, it's not the ideal thing, but it's what I could afford and it's what I could get in the hobby shop while I was there. So a big block of the oasis foam, which is usually for flower arranging and things like that. We're going to use it for landscaping, and we're going to use a lot of white PVA glue. I'm going to keep this simple, as I said from the start. I'm going to keep it like a simple. I don't know if you can hear that. I've got the squeaky chair. We're going to keep this a simple build, so we're not going to go too explosive with lots of different products. Some people like to use clays and fillers and things to make the landscape. We're just going to go fairly straightforward. We're going to use some PVA glue and some other bits and bobs. Nothing too major. We've got myself a cheap picture frame, and what I've done is I've made myself, which I'm not going to show because I've already done it. I've made myself a base for it. So in the picture frame you get this wooden base plate that has the arm here. I've taken the arm off. Now that was a bit, it didn't really fit very well. It's a bit of a deep picture frame. So what I did was, glued to the wooden base for the picture frame is a piece of standard foam core board. It's just 2 pieces of like thin plasticky paper with some foam in the middle. Cut that to the right size using this base as a template and stuck that on with white PVA glue. And on top of that, I've just glued again with white PVA glue some thin plastic card. Now the reason I've glued this plastic card on the top is that we are going to be putting PVA on this and things like that, and I don't want any water or moisture to seep through into the foam core or the wooden board and warp it and bend it. So hopefully that will prevent it. Now I do need to go and prime this, but once that's primed it's ready to go. So this just fits into the picture frame thusly. If I can get it in. It's cut to size just about. So that goes in, and what we have is a nice spanky and pretty cheap, a few quid, diorama base. There you go, done. So we can build stuff onto here. Now what I need to do first and foremost is mark off where the edges are. So I've got myself a nice Sharpie. I'm just going to mark off around here. I did mark off, you'll see the pencil marks on that. I did make some pencil marks on the plastic card, but that was before I glued it all together. So they've shifted a little bit. So we have those there. So that's now marked. So we have our plastic base. My plan is, I'm not really sure, my plan is, and I'm kind of making this stuff up as I go along, so don't expect anything amazing. I'll do my best. I've not done a lot of dioramas, this is all kind of new for me. my plan is really to have kind of the vehicle here and the figures around, and I'm going to have like this foam is going to make up a little sort of hill, or maybe a little hill with a little sort of cliff on it here somewhere. Maybe it'll gently slope down here a bit, and then just generally gravelly textures. We'll have some grass on top of the sort of the little cliffy bit here, and I'm going to go and source some wood products from the garden to make trees or branches and things. And then nothing too complicated, because I'm not going to go too in depth. I was going to have like buildings and stuff, but I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to keep this straightforward. So we're going to have just lots of gravel and dirt and earth, and we're going to have the vehicle around about here somewhere, and then the figures will be placed around it. Now, other things we'll need to mount the figures onto this board somehow. For that, I'm just going to use cocktail sticks and PVA glue. I've done it before, it works. This isn't going to be, once it's done, it's going to be put in a cabinet back at eModels, and then it's never going to be touched. So it doesn't matter if things aren't super glued in place or magneted or screwed or riveted, it's fine. And there is one other ingredient. How are we going to make the earth? Well, we're going to use actual earth, actual dirt from my garden. So I shall hand over to my alter ego, Foxx, strange, we've both got the same name, and he will explain how to prepare actual earth for your diorama.
Hey everyone, Foxx here. As Foxx, the other one, said, one of the things you can use in a diorama, in place of special products, is actual things from the outside world. And Foxx, the other one, is going to do some of that in his project. So, the first thing we need to think about is the ground texture, and what better way to create bare earth than, well, bare earth. So, first things first, it's time to go old time team. Yes, I love time team. Head into your garden, or any old patch of land you can dig up, and dig a girt big hole. Make sure that you have permission from whoever actually owns the land to do this, obviously. And if you're digging in your family garden, you might want to have a sit down with your parents to make sure A, where all the family pets are buried, and B, there's no history of relatives mysteriously disappearing overnight, because that would just be awkward. Ideally, you want to dig about a foot down. That way you'll hopefully get the drier soil that will contain less grassroots, tiny creatures and wiggly things. When you have a goodly amount of dirt, head back indoors and put the dirt into shallow, flat containers, baking trays, casserole dish lids, anything flat that can go in the oven. Take time to check through the dirt, and if you do get any worms or beetles and things, then just gently take them out and put them back outside, because tiny creatures are awesome, and they don't really want any part of what is to come next. Now, we need to kill off any organisms. I love that word, organisms. Organisma. Any organisms that call your dirt home. To do this, we'll need to bake the dirt. Yes, I am teaching you the cooking. Now, it is at this point that some people like to add fish to the recipe. Don't. Simply pop your trays into an oven warm to 180 degrees centigrade, or some other temperature in Fahrenheit for our colonial cousins. And give it all about an hour. And voila, you have the tray of lovely earth, free of creatures and organisms, which is now cooked and cleaned, and yes, actually smells quite nice. It will make your kitchen smell like somebody's baking bread. It's rather pleasant. Yes, we know it's nice. Anyway, now your earth is free. Is what? What are you looking at? No. Don't even. No. No, I can't believe you. That's it. I can't work with it. I can't do it. I've had enough. I've got to go. I can't watch this. This is ridiculous. I'm not even taking part in this.
Okay, thanks Foxx, the other Foxx, for that little useful guide. Did I tell you what? I don't know what it is, but something don't quite feel right. I feel like I've eaten something funky or something. I don't know. Like I've swallowed an Eratus bug or something. I don't know. If I start calling everybody John Shepherd, then let me know. Anyway, next step. Little Stargate reference there. Let's crack on. So, what's the next step? Well, first thing we need to do is get some lumpy bits down on here. Now, as I said before, I'm going to show you a cheap and cheerful way to do this and keep it simple. I'm not going to go too expensive. So I've got my board ready, and I've got some bog standard flower arranging Oasis foam. Now, it's not the best foam to use because it is quite crumbly and it's quite squishy. You can do that and dinkle it. Ideally, you want to use some kind of sculptable foam. You get blue foam that you can sculpt for dioramas, but I haven't got any of that. I couldn't afford any, so I didn't want to get any. I didn't have any available to me, so we're going to use bog standard Oasis foam. So I've got my map, my sort of diorama base laid out. I've put some paper down because this is going to get messy from this point. I want to put some in the corner here, so I want to keep this edge, this corner, so I'm going to use the corner of the foam itself, and I'll probably have some other bits sitting around. So I'm just going to put this to one side. I've got to tell you, this is going to get messy. So we want to keep this corner. I'm not going to use any funky tools. You can use things like hot wire tools and things, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep it simple. So we're going to keep this corner, and what I'm going to do is just cut out a random shape. It's quite pleasing cutting this stuff. It's quite a pleasant experience. It feels quite nice to sculpt and cut. So we've got that there. That will now sit in the corner like that, but it's a bit, I don't want it that shape obviously. So what we want to do is kind of sculpt this down a bit. So we're just going to start carving away, and you can do it, you don't have to be careful. Remember, real life is random, nature is random. So I'm just going to start sculpting away. Just have fun with it. These blocks aren't expensive, so you're not going to spend a fortune. Let's just get, I want kind of that shape, don't I? Let's just go in there and cut that away. Cut some of that away. We'll mould this so it's a more slopey shape. We'll get rid of this obvious line here. Just have fun with it, just play with it. So, there we go, that's a bit more like it. So we've got this lovely kind of bumpy lumpy shape. Now I'm not fussed about these sides because we're going to cover those up. There's a bit of a gap there. What I can do is fill that in with some more foam when we get that on there. So there we go, that's better. So there we have more of an earthy bank ready to go onto the diorama. I need to flatten that down a bit. Get off, get off! So that will just sit in the corner like that. Lovely. Put some stones and rocks in there. So that's on. So I need to glue that in place, and then we'll do the next step. What I'm going to do is glue it in with some plastic card. I'll do it off camera. I'm going to glue it in with some plastic card. No, with some PVA glue. I'm just going to splonk it onto the surface with some PVA glue, and then we'll do the next step. So, back in a second. Okay, so that's had about an hour or so to dry, the glue. They've just been glued on, and I've kind of mushed them in a little bit so they fit to the base and they fit round the edge. What's next? Next we can start having some fun. I have a collection of small stones, little bits of pebble and stuff I've got from the garden, and washed of course, and also from Dave Wise the Rumgon Barker, regular eModels livestream follower. He sent me a load of bits of slate, so we've got lots of little bits of rock and stuff here, which is kind of cool. So we're going to get these stuck down first. We are going to do like a surface for the earth, but that's going to come afterwards. So what we're going to do first is start putting some rocks in this diorama. And there's a couple of things we can do. We can have them lying around. We can also have them on this like embankments. And for the embankment ones, what we're going to do is we've got ourselves a sort of super glue, just for speed basically. What we can do is we can start to have these lying around. So maybe I'll put one here to fill this gap, or maybe I won't, I don't know. This is a bit of house brick, so I'm going to put the flat side down because it looks a bit rubbish if it just looks like a house brick. Looks a bit pants. So that one can go there. So quite simple. All we're going to do is apply the super glue here onto the bottom and just plonk it down. You could use white glue for this bit, it doesn't really matter. I'm just using super glue because it's fast and it's nicely sticking. Because it's fast and it will actually work its way into the porous foam as well to give it. Let's put some more on the bottom here actually. Let's put some more on the bottom there. It'll work. It's fast to stick down, and it'll work itself into the foam, and it'll give it a good grip. So once it's glued, it'll be in there permanently. So we'll give that a minute. We've got some flat pieces here, and I've got to keep in mind where I'm going to put the vehicle, which is going to be here. So we've got some flat bits. What we can do is, you've got to kind of have some structure to this. Now for some of these stones, what I'm actually going to do is jam them into the foam like this, so they stick out. Because you would have rocks sticking out of earth. So I can just jam that in, pull it out, a little bit of super glue on there. So you could use PVA for this. I've just got the super glue handy, and it's going to be a lot faster than waiting for PVA to dry, which will take a while. So I've got a rock sticking out there. What else have we got? Let's have another similar rock. Put a rock there maybe, or can we have... Let's put some rocks in random places. So I'm going to go around and get all these rocks stuck on. I'll either jam them into the foam, or they'll be on the base somewhere. So when we come back, we'll do the next step. Back in a moment. Oh, by the way, this stuff sticks to your fingers. You might want to wash your hands before you eat anything, because the green stuff sticks everywhere. It's a mess. Okay, so that's all dried. Now, bit of advice. Don't do what I did in the last step. I realised that gluing these on with cyanoacrylate glue or CA glue or super glue is not the best idea, because the glue actually disappears into the foam, but it also kind of eats away at it. So it just doesn't really stick. It becomes this powdery stuff and it doesn't really stick. So what I did was, where the rocks just stuck to the foam, I just went back with some PVA glue and glued them in. So where they stuck to the plastic card, CA glue is fine. For these ones, it's PVA glue, I'm afraid, and you have to wait for it to cure. So what's next? Well, next we need to start putting some earth on this. Now what I've gone ahead and done, I've taken the figures off their little cork bases, just got them ready. And I've drilled a little hole in the plastic card here, just through to the foam core. It doesn't go through to the back. Drill a little hole and just put a cocktail stick in each of these, because what we're going to do when these are finished, when this is finished, we're going to stick these guys on the diorama with cocktail sticks. We're going to have a little bit of stick sticking out the foot and just plonk it in and PVA glue them down. Doesn't need to be too complicated. So I've drilled 3 little holes for 3 guys that are going to be on the ground. So that's those 3. There's 2 guys that go in the vehicle anyway, and there's a guy. The sniper will be up on one of these hills somewhere, so I can just push him in. It doesn't need to be glued, because when we do come to put things like bits of tree and things and sticking up things into this foam parts, we don't need to worry too much about gluing them in. Although there's going to be covered in earth and PVA and other stuff, we can poke a hole through with a drill bit or with a pin or something, and then simply splonk whatever's going into it in, and it will held in place by the foam anyway, because that's what this stuff is. It's Oasis foam. You're supposed to stick flowers in it and they don't fall over. So I've taken all the guys off the little base. I'll just put them to one side. Now you'll notice I'm wearing the gloves. Why am I wearing the gloves? Because this is where the messy fun time starts. Yeah. What we're going to do, we need to get an earth texture on this. Now we're going to do 2 things. We do need to seal this foam with PVA in some way or other, just so it's not porous anymore. Because as soon as you put anything on this, it'll just soak in. Now you can seal this stuff with primer or paint. You'll just use quite a lot. It works fine, but what's easier is just to brush on some diluted PVA glue. So we're going to do that on the back parts here, where they're just going to be painted black to go around the edge. For the top bits, it's where we're going to stick the earth. So we're not going to do that yet. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to apply some earth. So we're going to make some earthy, muddy stuff that's going to go all over these and there. That will be PVA and soil, and that will seal this a little bit. And then when that's dried a little bit, we'll go in and just put some watered down PVA on these sides where we're not going to put any earth. So I'm going to move this out of the way and let us make some earth. Now this is where it's messy fun times. Remember, I've got my baked and sterilised earth that smells fantastic, and we need some PVA glue. So I have a big bottle of PVA glue, and what we're going to do is quite simply make some mud. So we're going to get some of this earth out. Now remember, this earth is dry, so it needs to be thin. Now it's got little bits of twig in there, and I'm going to take those out for now, because we don't need them at this stage, but you will pick up little bits of twig and things, which is handy, so keep them. We've got ourselves some mud. Don't need a whole massive amount, just enough to cover the surface. So that should be enough to go on with. I can always make more if I need to. There's a little bit of... Wow, look at that. Piece of Roman glass. Probably not Roman. In our garden. Now, that's probably from our old shed or garage. Say from 30 years ago. There's a little bit of glass in there. So do make sure you take things out. So we've got some soil. I don't know if that'll be enough, but we can always make more. So I'll put this soil away to one side. And this couldn't be simpler. All we need to do is get our lovely, lovely PVA glue and just cob it in there. Let's do it with the other hand so you can see. I don't know the mixing ratio. There isn't one. I'm making this up. And we'll add a little bit of water just to thin it down a bit. And all we're going to do is get myself a spoon. I have a spoon. I'll use the back end of the spoon, it's easier. And we're just going to start munging this together. Now, it may take quite a lot of PVA. It may take quite a bit of water. So we'll just start. We'll see how this goes. Oh, it smells delicious. It smells like chocolate. It's really weird. Some more PVA. If you do this, you'll be craving for chocolate. Trust me on that. You'll be craving for chocolate. Okay, I've added some more earth in because it was going a bit soupy. It was turning more into soup than mud. So I've added some more earth in just to stodge it up. There we go, that's better. Now don't worry too much if it does look a bit like the brown soup at first. Let's put this lid back on the glue. Because when it dries out, like mud looks like a liquid, but when it dries out it goes lumpy. It will go lumpy bumpy. But I just wanted a bit more lumpy bumpy for this bit. So let's get this munged together. Oh, it does smell delicious. Gotta tell you, it does smell fantastic. Oh, I'm so tempted to eat it, but I can't because it's earth. There we go, that's more like it. There we go. So we basically made mud. And if you're wondering how to make mud, this is just the easiest and simplest way. Just PVA, a little bit of water, and actual earth. Because earth becomes mud, that's what mud is. So we're going to put some paper down. Dip it, put the lid on the glue. Put some paper down. This is messy fun time where everything gets really messy. Right, let's get the diorama back. And all we're going to do, and this is why we're wearing gloves, all we're going to do is start putting this stuff on here.
Slap it on.
So I'm going to get my spoon. Spoon! Clean the gimpy end off. There we go. And we don't want to go too thick because we don't want it to be a massively huge thick diorama. We're just going to put it down on here. Big dot of it. And then we're going to work it in. So we're just going to basically work it in so it's reasonably flat and thin. So we don't need it to be really thick. I'm not trying to make a big thick layer. I'm just trying to get some texture. I'll do it on camera. Just trying to get some texture to the surface. So you can squish it down if you want. You can rub it around. And it is pretty sticky. I'm going to try and build it around these rocks, but not cover the rocks completely. And it's not important about the colour either, or if you've got some thin bits like this, because we are going to be painting over this. So I just want to thin this down just to cover the surface. Big dot there, I'll put that back in there for now. So it doesn't matter if there's some bald spots, that's fine. There'll be little stones and things in here, that's fine. Just adds to the texture. And it's not necessarily going to look like mud when we're finished, it's just giving me a texture. It's doing two things, it's giving me a texture, and it's also, got little bits of rock down there, it's also going to fill in. I don't want to put too much on top because we've got a texture to go on there. I'm going to put some on here. Come on, off you get. Oh, this is jolly good fun. It's all sticky and messy and lovely. It's brilliant. It's going to fill in and cover up this foam and seal it as well because it's got PVA in it. It'll dry hard and it'll seal it quite. I'm just going to go fingers now. I'm just going to go fingers straight in. It's going to seal it quite nicely. So I'm going to go and get the rest of this board covered. Again, I'm not going to cover the rocks. I'll go around the rocks. I'm not going to put a lot on here. I might put some on there, but I'm going to have a grass texture on there, so that's not a problem. So join me in the next bit when I'll have made a thorough mess of this entire room, I suspect. But I'll tell you what, this is jolly good fun. This is so much fun. It feels weird. It feels weird. Okay, so we've got the mud on there now. Yeah, lovely, innit? Look at that, messy as anything. Right, what we're going to do now is we're going to get some little rocks, and we're just going to start placing these. We're going to suggest things like little rock falls and rocks that have tumbled off the edge of the thing here. And while this is still wet and sticky, we can start jamming these in. I just wanted to put the initial rocks down there just to give some sort of basis, because they will stick out a little bit like that one, and just give it a more realistic look. So we're going to double some little rocks in here, as if they've fallen out and tumbled from the edge. Just get those out, be easier, wouldn't it? It's a bit uniform, that. That's a bit rubbish, isn't it? Let's put that there. Just jam that in that bit there. Put this here. And then what I've also got is basically some kitty litter, or very tiny bits of rock. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to start sprinkling this on these bits here, just to give some kind of texture. Again, it's not all big rocks that are going to fall out of the side, it's going to be little rocks as well. So this is just going to give this some texture. Just here and there, just sprinkle it around, just to give it some different feel to it. And again, this is all going to be painted, so don't worry if this looks really weird right now. Just going to push these in, push that glue back up there. I'm keeping around the edge here because this is where I need the frame to go, so I don't want to go too far over the edge. So this is just going to break up this a little bit, and you can do as much or as little as you want. It just gives some texture to it. This is great fun. I thoroughly enjoyed doing that. It was brilliant fun. Very messy. It was like being a kid. It's like when you're a kid and you stick bits of macaroni to cartridge paper to make smiley faces and things. So there we go. So this is going to take quite a while to dry as well, so you also have to exercise a significant patience when you're doing this. So I'll put a little bit more around there. Just shake it on. Doesn't matter if you're carefree or careless. It's all just silly fun. So that's that. I've got little tiny bits of ballast on there, these little tiny bits of rock. I've got big dobber rocks, which looks really weird. I'm going to put one there. I'm going to break this up a bit so it doesn't just all look like they're all coming from one place. So what I'll do is I'll put this one in that hole. There you go. So it looks like that bit snapped off that bit now. Yeah, real life. Right, so there we have it. We've got our soil surface down. There's only one more thing to do before we crack on with the next bit, and that is to give where the vehicle's going to be some weight, some realistic weight, because you can't just have the vehicle floating on this mud surface. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave it to dry for a little bit, just so it's sticky. Then we're going to get some cling film over the areas we want, and we're just going to push the vehicle down onto the surface so that it imprints some tyre tracks and little divots where the wheels will go, and then that's where the vehicle will go at the end, and it'll just have that feel of weight. It'll look like it's part of the landscape rather than just floating over the top of it. Just going to smooth this off down the edge. Right, so I will now leave this alone, and I'll be honest with you, I'll probably have to leave it for about 24 hours. I haven't gone around the back here on these side parts here, because I'll just go over those with normal thinned PVA, because they're just going to be painted black around the edge once the frame's on. I can't put too much on there because I need to be able to make sure the frame still fits. Get a piece of tissue, clean that edge off. I've got to be able to make sure the frame still fits. I'll just do that there. Put that off. But it is important that you seal if you're using the Oasis foam, it is important that you seal it to some degree, just so it doesn't suck everything in, because it is crumbly and delicate, and if you don't seal it, it's going to suck everything in, it's going to fall apart over time, and you'll just have sadness. So I will now leave this to dry for, I'm going to guess, at least 24 hours. It's going to take a long time to thoroughly dry all the way through. A lot of the water will soak through into the Oasis foam, so once it's all fully dry, I'll knock it on the table a couple of times and watch everything fall off, because that'd be great. So when we come back, I'll have made the little tyre tracks for the vehicle. These, as I say, are for the figures, so when it's all dry we can pull these out and there'll still be a hole there. So I'll go and clean up my desk that I've made a thorough mess of, and when we come back we'll be on to the next step, which I'm not sure what that is yet, but we'll figure that out. So from your point of view, back in a moment. It smells delicious. This smells fantastic. Smells. Okay, so we've jumped ahead a little bit here. As you can see, I've now hit the whole thing with the black primer. From where we left off, gluing all the rocks down and stuff, I tweaked a few extra little rocks on at the end. And I've gone ahead and hit it with the black primer, so that's all the way around, all around the back parts. I also went over the side of the foam, the bits that are exposed, the backs and the sides, just brushed on some slightly thin PVA, a couple of coats, just to seal that in. Otherwise it would just absorb any paint and primer and just take forever to colour. So that's been done. I've also gone ahead and took a twig from the garden, off some plant in the garden, and I've just glued it in place with some super glue dead quickly. It actually snapped when I was pushing it down, but that's great because now it looks like a broken tree trunk. Yay! And now there are other tree things to go on here, but I don't want to put them in yet, because if I do put some grass texture on here, some of the ammo mat of grass, I can't do that once the trees are in, so I'll have to poke a hole through and put the trees in later if I use any. Now I'm not fully sure exactly what we're going to do in terms of grass and stuff yet. I've not really plan that far ahead, because the next stage is painting. We're going to paint the soil to look like soil, even though it looked like soil before I primed it, which is kind of weird. It's now black, so I'm going to paint this, and that will kind of inform what I decide to do going forward. So we've got a selection of paints. We've got we've got Vallejo model colour, Cavalry brown, we've got Ammo by MIG, red brown, and Shadow rust. Apologies for the white balance, it's because this is black, it knackers the white balance. Everything that's not black glows like a sun. We've got Vallejo game colour desert yellow and game colour beastie brown. You can use really any browns, it doesn't really matter. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with some of the lighter shades and build up the darker. Do it the other way around, start light and then work my way down to darkness, and then if I need to go back I can put any light bits in. I've not fully decided if this is going to be mud or just soil. I really can't know until I've got the colours down. So we're going to go ahead. Now I'm not going to be carefully cleaning out the airbrush between coats of brown, because what I'm going to do is very quickly blap the paint on to get a randomised patchy look. So I'm literally going to put some colour in, a little bit thinner, spray it on, tip out the paint, put the next colour in, a little bit of thinner, bubble it through, spray a bit off and spray the next coat. And it doesn't matter if they mix because they're all browns anyway. So I shall go and get that done. I can't talk to you while I'm doing it because I'll have my mask on. Golden rule when you're spraying, even if you're spraying acrylic paints, always wear a mask of some sort of respirator that can take away vapours and not just particulates. So I have to wear my mask. Got my spray booth over there, sucking all the air out. So I'll probably do a voiceover, or I might just show you and talk about it later. So I'll go and get my paints ready and we'll crack on. And with that simple paint job, pretty cool. So it didn't actually take as many colours as I thought, basically. I literally started off, like I said, with the Shadow Rust AMIG-043 and Ammo by MIG paint. Then I went in with the Beastie Brown, which is 72.043 from Vallejo Game Colour. And then I used a little touch of the Desert Yellow 72.063 from Vallejo Game Colour. Just those 3 colours, and it looks pretty cool. Now, you may wonder, and I did mention it before, but why would you paint the soil when it's already soil and it looks like soil? It seems like a really weird thing to do. Why not just leave it as soil and paint everything else? Well, that's the thing. It looks like soil to our eyes at our scale, but this is a big area, you know, a dude's this big, and soil, if you look at a soily area, it's all different colours. So if you just left it as the natural soil, it would just look like you plonked soil on it, because for something, you know, a foot by half a foot or whatever this is, it's the right colour. But for something, when you scale it down or scale it out, or whichever it is, I'm not quite sure, when you change the scale, you have to then get creative. You have to kind of fudge it, and you have to change the colours, and you have to make it look more like it's something bigger than it is. You know, so this area, it's as big as my back garden or whatever, it's going to have all different colours of soil and different colours of bits of rock and stuff. It's going to vary. So that's why you want to repaint it, because you want this natural variation. So I've got a dark patch here, but the vehicle's going to go on top of there. We've got lighter patches where, for example, this might be that this is collapsed and that soil is a bit lighter, and this soil's a bit darker here because it's where the water gathers. It just makes it look a bit more interesting to the eye. It's like adding pre-shading to a model. You don't actually have real life pre-shading, but it just gives you that impression of depth, an impression of size and scale. So that's what you're doing. You're trying to fudge it so that your eye recognises this is a large area of earth, not just something a foot by half a foot. So yes, it seems weird, but that's why you do it. And that's kind of what we do when we paint anything. We're scaling things up or down to, we're making it look like your brain expects it to look like at that size. Anyway, so that's been done. 3 simple colours. You'll note how I didn't worry about getting it on the wood, because it just makes it blend in a bit more. It looks more like a big piece of wood. There's other stuff to do on that, but it just looks more like it blends with the landscape. And also, I'm not going to worry about painting the rocks. And you might think, well, why wouldn't you paint the rocks? Well, because the rocks have come from inside this big earth mound, so they're going to be covered in dust and soil anyway. So if you take a chunk off an embankment, all the rocks are going to come out kind of soil coloured. So it works. It just gives everything, it ties everything together and gives it a nice uniform colour scheme. I wasn't fussed about the paint going around the edge here. You might see a bit of that where the frame is, but it just doesn't really matter. If you're wondering why I've painted this bit quite bright, I went quite heavy with all 3 colours. I'm going to see if I can make that into a puddle. And when I first put the earth down, the water that oozed out from the PVA kind of collected in various areas and was kind of that colour. So I'll show you a picture here, and it looked like a muddy puddle. So I thought, oh, I could reproduce that. So it all evaporated away, and there's a couple of puddles here that I don't think I'll be able to find again now. What I might do is, before we do anything fancy, I might put some water on it to see where water collects and try and reproduce some puddles. I've still not decided whether I want to go for the muddy look or the earth look, because I quite like the look of this. It looks like that's collapsed and all the rocks have fallen out. So I don't know. I might make it muddy here and then have this as dry as I don't know yet. It's all adventure. So that's going to do us. That's going to do us for this episode. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've had some fun. We'll finish off this diorama in the next episode. Don't forget, of course, this episode is produced for and I am sponsored by emodels.co.uk, your one-stop shop for all your model making needs. If you've never been there before, go and check them out. It's a fantastic online model store. They've got everything you need: kits, books, tools, paints, all kinds of stuff. They provided all the materials, or most of the materials, for this build and the AML-90 model kit. Thank you very much. At this point, they don't sell Warhammer stuff, unfortunately, but we're having conversations. I'm nagging, basically. I'm nagging Pete, mate. So you never know one day. But they do sell the AML-90, so go and check it out. And all the materials I've used, not the earth, obviously, because that came from my garden, and the twigs, stones and things, but you know, all the paints I've used and all the materials I've used, the model maker materials, they've all been provided by them, so thank you very much to them. But do go and check them out. It's a fantastic store. They're really nice guys. If there's something you're looking for specifically and you can't find it, drop them an email or use the contact form on the site. It's either something they haven't got in stock temporarily and they'll be able to let you know when it is back in stock, Or maybe it's something they don't carry, but they can get from one of their distributors. So it's always worth asking, because you never know what they can get you on spec. I've seen them get somebody a model kit that they don't even sell, because one of their distributors had it, and this guy wanted a particular kit, so they got it for him as a one-off. So go and do it. But that's going to do us. Thank you so much. Do take care of yourselves. In the next episode, we'll finish up the diorama. We might even get the whole thing finished, because there's still a few little bits to do on the vehicle once it goes in place. But we'll get at least get the diorama finished. So until next time, take care of yourselves. Go make something awesome. Go be awesome. You there. You be awesome. And adios, amoebas. Doesn't smell like chocolate anymore. It just smells like paint now. It's not the same. Adios, amoebas.